We are here to talk with three extraordinary individuals who represent different eras of animation and neurodiversity. I'll quickly introduce them and then they'll introduce themselves. We've got Jorge Gutierrez. Of El Tigre fame and also the Book of Life, which, by the way, at this moment is #1 on Disney Plus in Mexico, 11 years. And if you want to know how Jorge is inspired to draw the boots that he draws, look at his boots today. Next we have Dani Bowman.
It's actually Sue Storm in taking Dani's place because unfortunately she has to go to a Halloween party at the time. And we've got a Fantastic Four fan in the audience.
Yes, I actually worked on it before I got the hat.
Fabulous.
And Dani, who started in animation at the age of 14, runs Danimation. She's the CEO, creator of Danimation Entertainment, which educates young people on the spectrum, I guess older people too.
You got that right.
In animation, has seven faculty right now who are teaching over 65 students at the moment, 7 days a week.
You got that right. As you know, people on the spectrum, that the instructors are always busy working on teaching the students one-on-one.
Excellent work. She's been doing that for a while. Go to the website. My favorites, Hide and Shriek.
Yeah, that's one of the cool, it's a Halloween special. Watch it on YouTube.
And the girl who lost her smile.
Hannah lost her smile.
We're not going to lose any smiles today. And lastly, we have Howie Hoffman, a veteran animation director whose credits include Doug. Netflix Atypical, some Sesame Street shorts. And our autistic artists.
I'm the oldest, but not the most mature. We're lined up by age, my experience with autism goes back only about about 18 years now. But I've had a good teaching parallel career to my animation career, and I'll tell you later how I came upon getting into the autism. Was almost by divine providence, really. But it's a cause I'm glad I really stayed in. My staff has always been, whether it was at the studio at Exceptional Minds or now my one-on-one students, my staff's always been my favorite staff of all people that I've worked with, and probably the most gifted. So anyway, I'm glad you guys are here, and without further ado,
Howie, you know why we're here today? We're here to explore how animation connects across generations. We've got Howie, I did have permission to call us the oldies here.
That's right.
And we'll call Jorge the midi. We'll call Dani the youngie.
I just say I'm 74 and a half. I do what I did when I was young.
Nice.
And everybody says, well, you only look 74, you know.
So how animation connects across generations, and then how neurodivergent creators are helping to shape it and have shaped it into the future. So that's sort of our framework for today's talk. Before we start, a little bit of a warm-up, even though we are getting warm with our vocal cords. We're going to have each of you, and we'll start with Jorge. Could you share how you first fell in love with animation and what drew you into the field?
So I'm originally from Mexico, and I think every kid, when they draw, and I think most kids draw, and the artists and the animators are the kids who don't stop when they grow up. But as a kid, I think like most kids, I imagine my characters moving and talking. And I would draw the sound effects and the actions and all that stuff. And I think that's the magic of 2D animation. It fulfills the promise in kids' heads of their drawings moving and coming alive. And so I would literally put a sheet of paper on top of the TV. I'm 50 years old, so we still have TVs where you could do that. And I would draw really fast to try to capture the drawings. And as I got older, I became obsessed with cartoons, like a lot of people on the spectrum, because everything was clear as far as acting and emotion and communication and the visuals. I could process information really fast, so animation did something really special to me. And so as I got older, when I was 13, the moment it happened was I was at a big dinner. My father was an architect, and all his friends were architects. He yelled out, it was like a scene from The Godfather, he yelled out, "Jorge, what will you do with your life?" So at 13, I stood up and crackling voice, "Father, I'm gonna be a painter." This is what I said. "I'm gonna be a painter, I'm gonna be a writer, and I'm gonna be a movie director." And everybody in that dinner laughed. Except one guy who goes, wait, the foolish boy, he has said something interesting. He goes, "That's animation. You get to tell stories, you get to make paintings move, and you get to make movies." And that was it. That was the moment. I was like, that guy is like he just showed me my future. And my father said, "Find the hardest school on the planet to do that. And if you can get in, maybe I will let you study it."
Great story. Sounds like there's a movie in that, at least the beginning of a movie. Good premise. And Dani, what about you?
So now that you've heard of Jorge Gutierrez's side of the story, so for those of you who are curious about my story of how I fell in love with animation, for me, before I was animating and drawing ever since I could pick up a pencil, before I spoke at around 4 or 5 years old. At the time when I was watching TV, and I was like, what's this little thing that causes the things to move? So when I stop and pause, when I play, stop, rewind, play, stop, rewind at this moving thing, I was like, how does this work? So I asked my parents to help me get the idea by doing little stop motion animation. At the time, that was before it was stop motion animation. I used to take pictures of my plush toys, and I just take a picture, move them, take another picture, and I move them again to see all the pictures move. And when I flipped, when I was like flipping the pictures, I was like, I see how the animation works, and this is very convincing. So you see, the beauty about animation, what I saw from my favorite cartoons and animation that I grew up, is that animation and cartoons taught me the importance of emotions. How to be happy, how to be sad, how to be mad. Growing up, my favorite cartoons has always been have been teachers of what does it mean to storytelling? And what we love about, people on the autism spectrum, what we love about our favorite cartoon characters is that we find our characters relatable. It's like imagining yourself getting into character. So animation became my first language, a way to turn ideas into animation and communicate emotions that were hard to put into words. I was fascinated about how drawings could come to life. And once that moment, I could tell a story. I never looked back. Animation gave me the freedom, the purpose, and a voice.
Wow, great. Well, it helps you with your own emotions. Did it also help you read others' emotions?
It certainly has helped me read other emotions, but the only thing that I have to learn as a person on the autism spectrum is learning how to give eye contact. So, but then you have to balance it, don't just look away or stare at the people's eyes. It's kind of uncanny. I had a hard time looking at eye contact with real people when I was younger because it looked pretty uncanny as contrast to looking at a cartoon character's eyes.
Very interesting. And Howie, how did you get into the animation world?
I thought it was age before beauty anyway. I'm following these guys. I will tell you that. I just have to say, Jess Jerome at Exception Minds introduced me to Jorge by bringing him in many years ago. We had worked together, not knowingly. I'd written a script for Chalk Zone, and he was working on Chalk Zone, maybe that script. But in any case, he's always been hailed as the best speaker ever. And I've known Dani since she was 14. So yes, I'll answer that question. Similar to them, I was into cartoons like any kid. I think like most kids. And I drew because my father was a pediatrician, a doctor, but he used to carve ivory soap into these little characters, and he would draw, and my mother wrote. She would write funny songs and poems for people's occasions, birthdays and whatnot. And so I had that kind of creative input, and then creative environment. And I loved animation like most kids, and the Flintstones were the first. This will all date me, but you guys know. So the Flintstones was the first primetime cartoon that went prime time. It wasn't Saturday morning, and there, for some reason, I always liked TV commercials better than, or I was really interested in studying TV commercials more than I studied animation. But there's a lot of similarity. I just learned how to tell the story in 30 seconds, which came in handy when I had to do 10-second promos for Nick and MTV and all these networks. And but the cartoons, I mean, I loved Hanna-Barbera, and my father knew the creator of Howdy Doody, so he even mentioned Dr. Bobby on the show once. So it was all kids. My whole life was all about, my environment was all about kids and all about the kids. And we had a large family because my dad was a pediatrician in a small town. He was a local celebrity, really. So as far as getting interested, I liked things that were, I later realized, were all illusion-based. I did magic as a kid, ventriloquism as a kid, and then I drew a lot. I didn't really get into animation younger, except I learned how to draw from drawing 101 Dalmatians, all 101 of them. And that's good practice, by the way. And so it occurred to me later as I got into animation and I got into advertising too, because I actually started my advertising career doing tricks commercials. I was the mean guy during the 80s. When you guys, most of you weren't born yet, but I was the mean guy that kept him from getting the tricks. And I will say this because I'm proud of this, but it kind of happened by accident. But I had been working on MTV IDs and meeting a lot of people, and I was really into mixed media because I'm an idea guy, so I wanted to go with the idea that fits the style. So this will date me again, but I was one of the first art directors to put in cutout animation, computer animation, clay animation, and pixelation that I liked. So I was at college. I dropped out of medical school after 4 days. And I know this is a long answer, but this is why they call me the Columbo of cartoons. Sam Register.
Pick it up, Howie.
One more thing. So I just want to say I went into fine art because when I dropped out of medical school on a Friday, through, again, divine providence, the guy that took my place, because it was a week into it, was on the waiting list for 3 times, and he had started grad school, and he and his wife called me up and said, "We love you, what can we do for you?" I said, "No, I'm glad I got out, and I'm glad you got in." They said, "No, we love you, what can we do for you?" And I said, "Come over and buy my books, my medical school books. My father just spent $400 at the VCU bookstore. Come over and buy them." So they said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to go to art school at Pratt where my girlfriend is, or I'm going to go to film school in LA, but I'm going to do my art." And the wife looked at me and said, "I'm the assistant dean of admissions at VCU at the art school." So before I could say, "Did you guys start last week too?" Before I could say two, she said, "You're in on Monday." So for me, it's a lesson of, besides whatever's up there, but it's a lesson of when you're true to yourself, things fall into place easier. Life is hard, but when you're true to yourself, things fall into place easier. So anyway, when I was in fine art, I didn't know I was that into animation, and I heard that Steve Siegel, who's now in San Francisco, had started an animation program as he graduated, and I knew him from Sunday school and from high school a little bit. And I lit up, and I said, I gotta take it. And yeah, I don't know. And people said, well, when you talk about animation, as you can see, I light up, so that's that.
Interesting story. Another bit of serendipity. Somebody at the table, somebody across the street or down the road.
Yeah.
We're going to talk it now. We're going to get in a little. You're going to be my students for a second. As I teach, you're my students. Ready for this? This is we're talking about generations. We're going to think about the metaphor generations. Our panel title is this. And it hints at how the industry and the understanding of neurodiversity has evolved. So that's how we're going to look at generations, the word. So that said, the question is, what does generations mean to each of you? How has the industry evolved? How is neurodiversity touched on this or being woven into this? And how do you see your place within the evolution of animation and neurodiversity touching it? Dani, we'll start with you.
So, what generation really means to me, it means honoring the trailblazers before me while opening the doors for the next wave of the storytellers who are on the autism spectrum. I represent a new generation of autistic creators who are proving that we are built, that we belong in every part of the animation industry. It's not just about carrying the torch, it's about making sure more people are getting into the industry way more. And besides, has been like a big involvement with the technology, there's new technology, and when we, the new generation, can adapt when technology changes. And you know what, that's the beauty of like getting to see generations to come.
Nice, thank you. Jorge?
I think a lot about the generation before me and Howie and everybody, in between us. And I've been very lucky to meet a lot of directors and a lot of show creators. And I found that the older generations, being neurodivergent was taboo. They were not very vocal about it. They weren't very open about it. There are certainly directors out there who drop little crumbles of, Tim Burton's and the Henry Selick's of the world, Guillermo del Toro, like all these guys who sort of hint at it, but are never open about it. And I remember when I was diagnosed when I was 40, I was way older. And I realized, half of the crews that I've ever worked with are neurodivergent, and we just didn't know. And I started seeing a lot of my contemporaries, show creators and directors, being a lot more open about it. So Rick and Morty creator Dan Harmon's very open about it. Maxwell Adams, the creator of Billy and Mandy, Craig McCracken is now very open about it.
Oh!
So, right?
Yeah.
So it feels like my generation is going, hey, this is what made me different. This is what made me see the world in a different way. It's been a gift to not see the world like everybody, because the things that change culture and the things that change the world are not the things that are the normal things. It takes someone who thinks differently to make those changes. And guess what? The odds are it's probably someone who's neurodivergent that's making that change. Not just in the arts, but in technology and honestly in every field. Right? In medicine, it's super common. In astrophysics, super common. So I think my generation is coming to terms with we are different and it's a strength. Obviously it's not easy, but it is a strength. And I think your generation is going, damn right it's a strength.
Yeah, it is a strength.
So that's how I view the generation. So my job, and I take it very seriously, my representation before told me you cannot be open about being on the spectrum. It'll just be another reason for a studio to not hire you, or think you're difficult, or think you're weird. And I remember thinking, if a studio doesn't want to hire me because I'm neurodivergent, I don't want to work there. Period. So I changed representation, and I told that story to the new representation, and they were like, we love neurodivergence. And now I'm very open about it, and I can honestly say it's only helped me, and it's only allowed me to be who I am, and this is who I am. I don't know how not to be autistic.
And how you've seen several generations, well, we won't say several. several dozens of generations change from the rock tablet and chisel. That is unfair. But remember, Howie and I grew up on the Flintstones, right? Great series. Anyway, how have you seen today's generation of animators in terms of
It's a loaded question, and I will try to be succinct for a change. I first of all, I can't really claim to be on the spectrum, but I'm very much a moth to the flame. And that's a long story, but I will say that I got involved in autism not out of the goodness of my heart. I left the sort of big time in animation to, I had an inner ear injury that's a very famously invisible injury that was 20 years later last summer, validated and vindicated. But my symptoms on that, unbeknownst to me, were very similar to what happens with autism. So much so that, again, long story, but I believe that a lot of autism takes place in the inner ear part of the brain. And there are a lot of people on the spectrum who've had a serious amount of ear infections, like a lot of kids do, but a serious amount as kids. Not that there's one cause or anything like that. But I found out very quickly that I would be believed and people would understand what I went through when I was ADD more than I had ever been, even though I always was. And I think for the generation of, and so I'm very much a moth to the flame, and sometimes I wish I could claim it because, well, there are times at Exceptional Minds where, when we were getting started, where I would see a student and they were very articulate. Well, they were just very present and very similar to like Jorge and Dani said or implied. The studios and especially the animation industry is full of people who are ADD and obsessive and so there are times where I would question the diagnosis of a student at Exceptional Minds or a studio member, and then I'd look at them and I'd go, nope, they're that gifted, they have to be on the spectrum. So there is an uncanny, I really got attracted to the cause because there's an uncanny connection between autism and animation. And your question, though, is more about the generations. When I was experiencing it a little bit in the 80s or 90s, I wasn't really aware of what autism was. And I had a childhood friend named Jeff Lurie, who now, to name drop, he now owns the Philadelphia Eagles, but their whole cause is autism now. And his brother was autistic at the time, and his mom was very, still is, active in that cause. And I didn't know why he didn't come back to camp for the later years, but it was probably that. And then I had the privilege of teaching a couple of times at the Howard School in Atlanta, because a friend of mine was the athletic director there. And I realized that neurodiverse young adults and kids were really bright and really smart and asked great questions. And now I know that a lot of it is people on the spectrum take in everything. They just have a harder time, and I'm generalizing, I'm sorry, but they have a harder time getting it out. And so the magic of when we started Exceptional Minds was that you could say without BSing, you could really say that they changed, because if you teach somebody animation principles or you teach somebody the technology, and they have a way to express themselves, they change. So when I experienced it in the older generation, if I had to name the three best, what I thought character animators that I worked with, one from my hometown of Virginia, one from Broadcast Arts that moved up to DC to do a Trix commercial and became Curious Pictures, and one person who's very famous who I won't name because it's me that thinks he's on the spectrum, but he probably would admit it now. But I realized that the three really uniquely different and really the best character animators I knew, now I think, oh, that's what it was. That's why I had to help them from the social part of it that much.
A question for all of y'all. What about I've been teaching film since we had dual system 16 millimeter, which none of you understand. And then we went into digital mini DV, we had all sorts of fights. Digital's gonna replace film, blah, blah, blah. It's not gonna replace it. Anyway, for you in the animation world, and Jorge, you would have bridged this gap from analog. Howie would have actually worked in it. And Dani has no clue. Well, sort of. But my question is, how does technology and this better technology, iPads, Procreate, and all that kind of stuff, working on your phone, how does that help the neurodiverse person express themselves as to what Howie suggested?
I mean, I would say the big evolution of being able, to me, it's the output and the input, both. Now with an iPad, you can basically have an animation studio in your little tablet and take it anywhere and work on stuff anywhere. And you get to upload it to YouTube, and now you have a worldwide audience. Those two things didn't exist when I was in film school. And so this idea that an artist can now work from home, build an audience, literally create a movie, a character, and put it out in the world and have it resonate with others, there's no excuses anymore. Before it was like, I need studio funding, I need somebody to sponsor this work so I can shoot film and then send it to festivals and find a studio that will sponsor this and finance my movie or TV show. That doesn't, you can crowdfund, you can get family, friends, and fellow animators to support you and create something. And I think that technology has become the great equalizer. And it's really, I mean, I hate to say it, but there's no more excuses now.
And Dani, what about in the education realm? With Zoom and all that kind of thing, being able to work with people online, is that?
It has definitely been a big jump. I've always been having, ever since I've started my, somebody's playing the audience.
I think it's the pencil.
Oh, okay. Where was I?
They weren't clapping for us.
Okay, where was I? So when it comes to the teaching, so ever since I've started my animation company, since 16 years ago, I've always wanted my company to be cloud-based. It's something completely different from any animation studio that you don't really have to go to a studio to work. It would be something that would be an easier access at the time. Before Zoom actually became the most popular platform to schedule events, all of this happening. So Danimation Entertainment didn't necessarily become cloud-based until the pandemic really just changed everything.
Yeah, the pandemic was a big deal in the education world in terms of getting to learn how to use Zoom. And it has offered a certain population that is remote or perhaps doesn't want to be amongst others in large classes the opportunity. So technology is interesting in all sorts of ways, in terms of broadcast, in terms of teaching, in terms of doing. And Howie, obviously, as the oldest on the panel, I'm not reminding you of that. As the wisest on the panel,
There you go.
you've gone through all the iterations of technology I've been through. What are the challenges for you now with respect to technology? Are there challenges?
There are challenges, but and it's just keeping up with stuff. But I will say this: when people will say to me, "How are you so good at knowing what kids like?" And I'll say, "I just create for me, and I'm emotionally immature." But really, what's kept me young is that I've worked with young people for so long that I don't even think about it really, except when I'm around older people. I think I don't want to be around these people. and so I did bridge it, Andrew. But I want to add this, as I always do. But I want to add this. When I used to think how cool it was. It must have been so cool to have been at the beginning of Disney, and when they went from the garage to the studio, and it's so good to be at the beginning of something revolutionary. And then I moved to New York for the birth of cable, and a job with Nickelodeon when there were 20 people in a room that were Nick, and it was the birth of cable. And then I realized, well, this is the beginning of something. And then and this technology has followed all that. And then then it was Google, you know, and then now streaming. And I had the distinct advantage of seeing people start these tiny little studios that with cable, and then with Google, and then with streaming, like Titmouse, and you know, that because they seized these opportunities and went with the new technology and did it. So I am old school in that I'm a Flash guy, animating, see, but even people think that my Photoshop skills are great, but I still do it all in Animate. And I do all my art direction in Animate. So anyway, I did like you, Andrew. I started this animation school at a summer program at the sports camp in Maine where I'd been as a kid, and we had to use Super 8 because it was the only thing you could take single frames of, you know. And so Nickelodeon would say, no, don't get the scratches out. We want it to look like it was by kids and whatnot. So I've been fortunate to be exposed, you know, to Toon Boom Harmony. And actually, Dani is the one who, I met her at 14, and it was to teach her Flash for a couple of weeks, but she was really into Toon Boom even then. One of the first people I know, other than Otis Brayboy, who had worked with me on Doug. And Dani's the one who introduced me to Bradley in Montreal, and it helped me bring Toon Boom to Exceptional Minds. And so, you know, I've been open to the new technology. The big difference is, yes, you can create for yourself. I used to really admire John Dilworth, who I introduced to Cartoon Network. I don't know whether they want to thank me or kill me, but he's really out there, and I don't know if he would want me to say this, but I think he's on the spectrum. But I love John, and he's got a huge heart, and he just has no filter, and I like him for that too. But we work together a lot, and one reason I didn't become a character animator or a storyboard artist was because of John, because he's so amazing. And he used to spend 30 grand a year to make his own film every year. And he would get people to ink and paint, and you know, painting sells. I know you guys long for someone like that, but don't ever do it. You know, if you want to draw on paper and scan it in, great. But and like Jorge said and Dani said, when we did a commercial for Trix and we wanted motion graphics, computer animation, we came out here to LA from New York to a big room like this of Cray computers, and it took them 3 months, and now you guys could do it in a day, maybe a day, if that long. So it's changed, and it's gone to be more creator driven, and now from just be able to create it yourself and make it yourself, like when I was at Exceptional Minds. Now, because of streaming and because of, and you could do it with websites, but now especially because of your own YouTube channels, basically, your own little network, you can market it, and you can get it out there. And sometimes you just have to make it and do it. But it's a whole nother job that you have, or have to get somebody else to help you with, to get seen and to get it out there. So in a way, it's more competitive because more people have a chance to do it. Like, I knew a lot of people that got nominated or won Oscar awards for shorts, and it was a goal of mine always. But it's more difficult now because people can make it. So it's a curse and it's a blessing. I don't know when you want to get to AI, but he has a great.
I've got a few more things on the script. Let's go back to the script for a moment. We're going to talk about autism, identity, and creativity. So we're going to shift a little bit, even though we've been talking about creativity. And this is actually, I know, Dani, you're doing your PhD right now.
Oh, correct.
Super fascinating. And we're going to talk about the connection between creativity and neurodiversity. So Dani, the first question for you is, you've said that autism gives you focus and vision. Can you share how it shapes your creative process in storytelling?
So for me, the interesting fact is, as people on the autism spectrum, we have a tendency to daydream and think about those stories ourselves. And we even tried doing some voice acting by practicing what the character would sound like and all that when it comes to the creative process. So as a visual learner, what I do is sometimes when I think of the dialogue, I think of it in my head. The most important thing I would say to myself, just put it down on the digital at least. So it's a good thing. Animation can be a really good dopamine source when you're just working on something. When you're working on a project. Whenever I work on that project, I just stay focused. That dopamine shift keeps me locked inside. I'm locked into the dopamine section when I'm just drawing.
It's funny you say that because I was thinking about this on my way here, and I completely understand what you're talking about. I'm not an animator, but I edit. So when I do a good sound edit, let's say a swoosh with a ball going across the screen, you get the same dopamine hit.
Yeah, it's like it's when you're in the dopamine hit, when you're in the dopamine track, it's hard to stop.
Yeah, and it's something that you can just keep going and going and going and doing. So do you think that so for you as a neurodiverse artist, it's the focus?
Certainly
it's the dopamine
focus.
hits?
Yes, the focus and dopamine hits is a big combination.
Wow, so interesting. Such a rational, sort of non-creative explanation for a creative question. No, it's great. It's very interesting. It's great. And because we can always break this stuff down to biology and chemistry if we want to, or we can go to the other side and go to someone like Jorge. Mexico, center of the universe.
It's a fact, guys.
So Jorge, your work celebrates culture, Mexico, individuality, imagination, cool boots, soap operas in Canada. How do neurodiverse voices bring something unique to your world that you're creating?
So I was not aware of this till after the fact, but when you go back and you look at everything, all the stuff I made, it's basically about someone who doesn't fit in.
Yeah.
And is trying to prove to everyone, not only do I not care to fit in, but I'm better because I don't fit in. And so El Tigre, Book of Life, My Own Three, honestly, it's all about someone who is going against what everybody tells them to do. And so that, some people say it's stubbornness. I like to call it rebellion. Has been something that has driven me ever since I was a kid. I've never, I know it's a controversial thing to say, but it really is a superpower to me that I don't care what people think.
Hyperfocus is a superpower, and also being and stubbornness and trying to breaking the rules from what not to conform. So when you're when it comes to conformity and non-conformity, when you take non-conformity as the lemon, that's how you'd make lemonade.
Right. And for me, the thing that I think being on the spectrum has allowed me to do is because I can hyper focus and I can consume media so fast. So I'll give you an example. So when I'm working, for example, when I'm writing, I will have a game on, I will have a movie on, and I'll have music on. And I write, and I make sure that if I'm writing in English, the music is in Spanish. So by the time I'm done writing, my focus, it's easier for me to focus when there's chaos. So chaos is my comfort.
I see.
Yeah, so once I learn that, I can sprint, and I'll go, all right, I work in the animation union, so it's an 8-hour day, right, 40 hours a week. So I break everything down into chunks. So I can hyper-focus for 4 hours, and I do 2 4-hour chunks. And the faster I work, the more I get done. And so it becomes this self-fulfilling wheel of pleasure, because the more stuff I get done, the better I feel, the more dopamine I get.
Yeah.
And the more productive I get, the more money I make. It's all positive, right?
Well, I have to tell you that the Richard Williams Animator Survival Kit Unplug, as now the myth has been debunked.
Yeah. Maybe that's what I'm doing wrong.
Your animation, by the way, Jorge, is your brain. If you've watched El Tigre, it's a peripatetic friggin',
Yeah, I mean, the idea was
a lot of action in that thing.
we as a kid I would watch stuff over and over.
Yeah.
So I said if I judge my audience correctly, I want to make things that people want to watch over and over, and we will reward you because we will put it full of Easter eggs and double entendres and a million side stories, and we call it maximalism.
Very good. I like that. Maximalism. So I got a question for you. I've taught your film schools, non-animation, just film school, live action stuff for years and years. A lot of film students making short films do films that reflect back on their own experience. They're semi-autobiographical with other characters in their place. Any of your work, Dani or Jorge, has it been semi-autobiographical in its essence?
What do you mean, like semi-autobiographical?
Like inspired by your life.
Inspired by your life and your experiences.
Well, speaking of, you mean some of my animation work that I've done in the past?
Yes.
Well, technically, I have created one of the short films, my senior thesis film, The Audition, really symbolizes, it's kind of like an autobiography, but because of my love of like circus shows and Cirque du Soleil, I kind of took that love and also put in based on my real life circumstances into a senior thesis short film about how can a girl could persist. It's the meaning of persistence. No matter if the bad guy no matter if the bad guy or the naysayer tries to stop you, you just to continue your flow, do your best. And the thing is, don't give up. That's what the message, what The Auditions was all about. And sometimes you'll get into those happy accidents.
So your experience is well connected, well woven into that.
Thank you.
And Jorge, you?
Everything. I think we all have a million stories inside of us, and all our experiences are true, and it's your job as an artist to take those stories out of you and embellish and edit and create something from them. So super fast, El Tigre is about a kid whose dad is a superhero, grandpa's a supervillain, he's got to decide, he adores both of them, has to decide what kind of person he's going to be. Is he going to be a hero or a villain? In real life, my dad was an architect, he could draw, so I thought he had superpowers, right? He was my hero. My grandfather was in the Mexican army, and he had this office that was insane. Guns are illegal in Mexico, and his walls were covered in guns. He had a red phone, and the carpet was red, so I thought it was blood. And he had this phone, and he would always yell at people, or talk sweet nothings to ladies that were not my grandma. And he would disappear. So I thought he was a supervillain. So my aunts would grab me, always been a chubby kid, they grab me by the cheeks and they would say, Jorgito, when you grow up, are you gonna be like your dad or are you gonna be like your grandma? And so El Tigre came from that. So everything I've ever made comes from stuff like that. And I think all of you have those stories that have happened to you.
And Howie, just wait, Howie, hold on. I got a question for you. You worked with Jorge recently, didn't you?
I did.
Collaborated.
It kind of was the answer to that question.
Yeah, so tell us about the collaboration and how that works.
As far as autobiographical, I've been involved with so many student shorts for a good many years that there were earlier shorts of mine that were, for sure. I think it's really, you write about what you know, like they say, and you draw about what you know too. But I think the one that I related to the most and learned the most from, and maybe hopefully contributed to, was with some students, with some of my studio members when I was at Exceptional Minds. We did a project on grief, and Jorge was he was busy having just finished the 3, and I wanted to. Well, anyway, it's a long story, but he narrated it for me. And, they insisted that I interview all these different kinds of people on the spectrum, nonverbal, everything, every kind of person, every race, every gender, and they said, you need one more old person. And I said, well, I'll narrate it. And they said, no, you're not on the spectrum. And I said, okay. And then they said, it has to be older. And I said, well, is 50 enough? And they said, not really. And I said, well, this guy's the hottest name in animation right now. And they looked him up while we were on this conference call. I said, okay, get him and we'll continue with this project. And so I sent it to Jorge, he said sure, and funny thing, I got to direct him a little. your voice, but you don't need to really. And so that's how we did it. We went out for chilaquiles at Nats afterwards, and the rest is history to come, I hope. I did want to say something about the creative and the spectrum. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about focus, attention to detail, getting your wanting to do something that's never been done before, or seeing the world like never before. And I had this theory. Somebody said to me, why are they such good creators? You know, and I said, well, if you look at Jim Jenkins when he did Doug, and a lot of the people I knew that created series, John Gilworth included, a good series is often, or short, is often about a parallel universe. And I hope I can say this, as sensitive as I feel it, a lot of people on the spectrum grow up in a parallel universe, and a lot of people keep those remainders of that parallel universe to different degrees. And so it makes sense that they would be, you know, what comes out of them would make for a good show or a good series or a good short. And I've been mostly involved in shorts. I've never even worked on a movie. But I wanted to say that one of the things that I thought was my superpower as a I can't even say I'm a normal or not neurodiverse, is obsessiveness. And people used to say, "You're so creative. How do you think of that? How did you come up with that line? You're so creative." And I would say, it's not being so creative. Yeah, I know how to structure creativity, and that, by the way, structure is a lot. But I would say I'm just obsessive, and I don't let it go till I solve it. So I literally wrote this short for Innie and Outie, this short I did for Nickelodeon. It was okay, but I wrote it on a napkin. I pitched it from a napkin. I mean, that traditional story. And I came up with a line for a trick commercial for new grape flavor, "Don't Tell the Rabbit." Everybody was talking about the new flavor tricks. And I said, "Don't tell the rabbit," and that became the extra line. So that was in the shower, you know, so I'm sure you guys have it. So not letting go of it, I think that obsessiveness, I don't call it, well, it can be called stubbornness because sometimes it is, but I look at people that call that passion or call me, you know, I'd rather, if you don't like me, you know, I'm a stubborn creative. If you like me, I'm a visionary. You know, it's really, so that's why it's good to hang in your community, by the way.
Let's talk about representation and industry shifts. So representation has been a big part of perhaps a cultural landscape in the last 20, 25 years. And Dani, so how can authentic autistic voices and characters be represented in animation more effectively?
So first, three things. So for the three things, the number one most important thing is you have to first of all get somebody that is on the autism spectrum themselves, and someone who is a consultant who understands people on the spectrum, who is at least on the autism spectrum. It's always good to get the team of autism spectrum involved. And when you're creating when you create a person on the autism spectrum, it's important to make sure people on the spectrum are included. When creating a fictional character that is on the spectrum, it would make everything fantastic. And make sure the story the stories don't have to be struggling or talking about autism directly. You can have an autistic main character. Look at shows like Dead End Paranormal Park and Carl the Collector. These are really great shows that shows examples of autism representation in the right way.
Excellent. Jorge, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff I'm making now, I have neurodiverse characters. You know, I get to retcon LP Gray and go, of course, Manny Rivera is autistic. And they're like, what do you mean? I go, well, it's based on me. I don't know how to not be autistic, so, and so it's been really cool. And same thing with Book of Life, right? Manolo's obviously on the spectrum. And so now when I make stuff, I think people just expect, like, of course, he's gonna put characters from that, and they always go, do you need you need a consultant? And I go, yeah, me. I can consult, you know. I'll never forget at Nickelodeon when I think that they said, do you need a Mexican cultural consultant? And I was like, do the white shows get white consultants? And they did not laugh like you guys. It was a very uncomfortable question. But yeah, I think the more you see characters, and I'm seeing them in TV shows, I'm seeing them in movies as a normal thing, and I think the freedom of having diversity, I know this is crazy, but the freedom of true diversity is when it's just there, and you're not glorifying or shining a light on it or making a giant point of it. It's when it's like real life, when it's just there. And to have autistic characters who are flawed, right, because that's the other problem. A lot of people have these super saintly, magical, disabled characters that I find ridiculous. I think disabled people are just as messed up as everybody else. Let us be represented correctly. And I love now that you're not just seeing it in the US, but you're seeing it all over the world, and you're definitely seeing it in children's entertainment, all the way from preschool to adult animation. Yeah. And so it's you know, the arts should be a mirror of the world, and to not show those things, that means that mirror is a lie. So it's very important to have those things.
And that diversity has to extend into real life past the screen, into workplaces, into studios. That's what we do at Autism and Entertainment. That's what we do at Exceptional Minds. That's what Dani does, is she goes out and spreads her words to the world. It's all great work that you're doing. I'm gonna just wrap. We are at 3:36.
Wow.
Crazy, isn't it? That was a short class. If you all enroll in Exceptional Minds, Howie and I will know.
Well, hey, I do want to say this, and I'm not there anymore, but when I do want to say this, I know you're running late probably because of me, but I think I think a lot of the neurodiversity in the DEI when it came out and everything was very skewed towards gender, and I'm not saying wrongfully so, and race. And one thing that Exceptional Minds has done so well is making autism and neurodiversity a part of that inclusion movement. And I just really am glad about that. I also, when starting or helping to start the studio, my goal was always to have it as a bona fide studio in and of itself. And one of the behaviors said to me, well, doesn't that marginalize them if they have to have their own place? And there's a visual effects studio, and you see their name for doing the credits and doing visual effects on Star Wars. You know, they grew up with that, and that's obviously a source of pride for those that work on it. And when people see that, they don't say, oh, they had to have their own studio to do that. They just, they just say, oh wow, people on the spectrum can do that. So I don't think it marginalizes you at all, and I always wanted to have, and I'm really grateful that it's come to pass that the studio at Exceptional Minds has become in and of itself, not just a transition to the outside world, but a destination in and of itself. And so kudos to you guys, and I always wanted to turn over the keys to you guys anyway. So people like Kate Jorgensen, that was at Nickelodeon from Exceptional Minds, is now back in the studio, as production manager. That's what I'm old. I want to hand over the keys to you guys. So what Dani does and has done for a long time is just really, that's the way to go.
So what advice? We're going to go one by one, and you have to be fast. Okay, Howie? I'm not looking at you again. What advice? If we go fast, I'll ask more questions. How about that? What advice would you give young autistic artists who dream of entering the animation industry, Dani?
So first of all, nobody works alone. The first thing you would have to do is get a team that trusts you, your family, your friends. Second of all, please go out there to go to many events as possible. Sign up for Recife Hollywood or sign up for Women for Animation. And just go to many events as possible. Just keep connecting. The more connections you meet, the better the better your outcome and your chances. And take a lot of many animation classes outside of academia as much as possible, which means well, I'm not saying academia is not important. I'm saying that academia is as important as taking classes outside of like schools, universities. Just keep going. Just keep learning. And whenever you fail, just keep going.
Yeah, and I'll just make one point, put a pin in it. I'm from Canada. By the way, the Blue Jays are playing the Dodgers in about 2 hours.
We're good.
I have to tell you, I went to a Blue Jays game with my boyfriend before.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then you are a guest Canadian today. But anyway, coming to LA. LA is all about relationships, isn't it, Jorge?
Absolutely.
It's a huge town based on relationships. I was blown away by it. Jorge, your one piece of advice.
Super fast, make things. Talking about things, looking at things, studying things, not enough. You have to make things. The only way to get better is to make things. Super fast. I couldn't find work when I graduated from school. Macromedia Flash, now called Adobe Animate. I got a pirate version of it. I spent 2 months making this little short while I was applying for work. I put it online. They got 20,000 views in the year 2000, which is like 2 million views today. And immediately I got a job. And I learned the best lesson I've learned ever, which is people don't pay you to see if you can do something. People pay you to do something you've already done.
Wow. Thank you. I'm gonna try that.
Ooh, I like that.
So my quick advice is this. You are what you do. So if you want to be a writer, write. I have screenwriter friends that have never gotten a movie on the screen, and I consider them screenwriters. Why? They spend their time doing that. How do I get into animation? Animate. You are what you do. In fact, I read recently about somebody that I used to work with a lot, and he was described by something great he did as a director in training. And this kid in his mid-20s, you're all kids, tricks are for kids. In his mid-20s, he was described as a director in training. That's not true. He is a director. He has 43,000 subscribers on his channel on YouTube. He started with other characters, and then he went to his own and has done like 3 web series, not even web series, just series, and with several episodes each, sometimes many. And and he's directed them. I maybe creative directed them with him, some of them, but he's directed them. So you are what you do. The other thing is, as Dani said about collaboration, this is my own statement, so I'll take credit for it, but it's called be generous with your genius. And I agree with Jorge, there's a lot of, I will not hesitate to say that people on the spectrum have superpowers like other people have but even maybe more superpowers, but that doesn't mean a show needs to be about a super person, about a superhero, if it's about autism. In fact, I just like it when it fits in and it comes out normally, like he does and like Dani does. So anyway, thank you very much. That's it for me.
We got 2 minutes left. So Howie, hold on, Howie. So what about Lightbox, Dani?
So Lightbox is a wonderful event. It's one of the biggest examples on you could just not just to socialize, but to connect with so many people. There's so many booths out there even major studios are there too at Lightbox. Go out there. And also, if you'd like to learn more information what we do at Danimation and how we teach students on the autism spectrum, visit us at danimation.us. DANIMATION.US.
I'll give you the last word, Jorge. How long have you been coming to Lightbox for? or the precursor to it?
I don't even know. I can't even tell. But this is 14,000 people at Lightbox this year. Just to give you an example, Annecy, the biggest animation festival in the world, is 10,000 people.
Whoa.
So then this is bigger now.
Bigger than before.
Yeah, bigger than before. It's only gonna get bigger, honestly.
Yeah.
But this is an incredible place to network, to meet, go to panels, obviously, find your tribe. Like-minded people are all around you. This is the perfect place. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people, you know, a few years from now go, at Lightbox, my career started. I mean, I found artists that I work with now here. So,
Nice. Thank you so much. So thank you, Jorge, Dani, and Howie. And thank you all. Thank you for bringing your insight, your experience, your wisdom. Thank you all for being here, paying attention to us, laughing, cheering. It's really important that we have these conversations. You all are important. Everybody at this Lightbox is important. Your stories are fabulous. Keep on working hard. And if you're outside, look at Jorge's boots.